Hi, this is Dan Henk. Welcome to another edition of the Skull Sessions. And today my guest is Adrian Santiago. I have your name right. Is that correct?
You nailed it, man. Good job.
Okay, we started a little conversation about how like the world has changed. You don't need like the big publishers or the big like music companies,
Yeah.
anymore. Like you can do stuff yourself. So let's go on that thread.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's crazy because like we really do, all of us have, thanks to the internet, access to services and people, and you can do everything that the publishing companies do. You can do it these days. I consider being traditionally published more of a badge of honor than anything else. Like it's just like this like clout thing, like my book was good enough to like win over these guys or whatever. But at the end of the day, all the services that they provide, we can do it. And a lot of it, like the marketing side of things, we've had to do that for ourselves, even when traditionally published was the only way. So no, man, like these days, whatever you want to do, whatever creative endeavor,
Well, you
you
fight to
you
get
can
stuff
do
even
it.
on the website. Like you're like, yeah, this is awesome book trailer. They go, yeah, we'll put it up, and I'm like, where is it? It's like it's
Yeah.
buried.
Are you telling people that it's there? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, man. No, I created my own, trailer for my novel. I've had two versions now already. One when I was still writing it, and one like when it was coming out. And I'm working on a third version now that because I'm already bored with the with the last one. I'm working on a next one, and I'm doing it all myself. I'm at the point now where I have to do like the voiceover for the narration in the trailer, and that part I'm not a huge fan of doing because you have to like listen to your own voice for a lot, and it's kind of annoying.
Yeah,
But
I can't read my own stuff, and like even if I thought it was good, I'm not sure if the customers would. Like it's pretty famous that like Stephen King narrated a couple of his books. It's like, man, he really should not have done that. You
yeah,
know,
there's some authors that can. Neil Gaiman has that silky voice,
oh
man.
yeah, yeah.
He'll
No,
put you to
well,
sleep. Like,
he's an awesome author. Period.
yeah, he's a talent all around. Like he'll do like readings as like like he'll do tours where he does readings and stuff. It's bananas. Yeah, man, that's a very like niche thing to like be the author and also narrate your own like audiobooks and stuff. I don't look forward to doing that myself. I think I'm gonna end up having to hire out and shell out the cash for it, man.
Well, there are people that are awesome that have that kind of like
Yeah,
James Earl Jones, like deep,
for sure.
booming, resonating voice, and you're like, you just want to listen to him,
Yeah.
and that's what you want. You don't want some guy who's like annoying and talking like this and like narrating your book. And you're like, well,
And
it's
then
great material, but it
I've
fucking
been thinking
sucks.
about that a lot because you mentioned James Earl Jones, such a like recognizable presence of a voice. You hear that voice, you know exactly who it is. And there's certain people that you can say that about. Um and it would be interesting to have somebody like that narrate your book because like you say, it sucks people in, but at the same time, my book, for example, has a lot of characters. It has a very big cast, and so I've been thinking about that a lot, thinking the perfect person for my book would be somebody way more neutral, who has a wider range, who can do a high feminine voice or can do a low male voice, and fluctuate between the two because there's a lot of characters that they would have
Oh,
to
I hear you.
provide.
Although I have
That's a
noticed that like some of those people are consummate professionals,
Oh,
and like
sure.
when they go through it, it's like you're amazed at the flexibility in their vocal range.
Yeah.
Like they'll be talking about stuff, and like they'll capture the fear or the excitement or the energy or whatever.
It's a real talent, man. It's hard to do. I respect people who can do it, and it takes a lot longer than you think. Like it's a
Yeah,
lot of
no, I
work.
believe it. Yeah. Well,
A lot of work.
I've had good results. I have like the my last couple books had audio versions, and what they would do is they would send me like snippets read by a couple of different speakers, so you could decide what tone better fit your book.
Mm, yeah, yeah, definitely the way to go for sure. Like that flexibility is
Right.
important, I think. Yeah.
Well, another thing they do too is like you can either pay them up front. 'Cause people are like, oh man, I don't have 5 grand in my pocket or whatever, or you can do royalty share.
Yeah. Which I'm more inclined to like save up and pay that high price rather than the royalty share. You know what I mean? Like
You're
just
probably better off because the audiobook sells.
yeah, yeah. Well, just the idea behind like this is a task. Let's get the task done. Let's get it paid for, and that's done. Like I don't want it to be an
Mhm.
ongoing thing that I need to worry about forever. But yeah, yeah. I haven't done my audiobook yet. It's on the expensive side to finish, so I'm gonna save up for a while. I've got the paperback out. I want to do a nice hardcover within the next year or so. I've got well anyway, let me tell you about the book so that you
Yeah,
know what I'm talking
that
about.
would help, right?
That would help. Okay, so my name's Adrian Santiago. I run an online author platform called Books by Adrian, and I wrote this. It's called Shadow of the Spark. It is the first book in the Mythic series,
Okay.
and Mythic is a sci-fi fantasy like epic, but this first novel follows a murder mystery plot. And so with this book, with its kind of like focused plot, I'm able to introduce you to a bunch of characters who are going to go off on crazy adventures throughout the series, and it's going to get more sci-fi and more fantasy as you go along. It's an adult book. It comes with its content warnings. If you got a problem with like HBO shows, maybe don't pick up my book. Very Game of Thronesy, very violence and all that stuff. I highly recommend picking it up if you are on the fence. This is the short story prologue. It's called The Death and Rebirth of Bella Erdman. It is available for free as an ebook if you sign up to my newsletter at booksbyadrian.com, and it's available paperback,
How
ebook.
long is it? The prologue book.
The prologue, the short story is about 10,000 words, so it's a good sized short story, and then it also comes with 3 sample chapters from the novel, so that way you can kind of get introduced to the main characters and see if you want to dive into the novel. It's a big book, the novel. It's a big boy, it's hefty, and
Mhm.
so
How many
it'll
words
take
is
you.
that?
This is 147,000 words,
Okay.
so almost 150. 3 NaNoWriMos.
Yeah, I found that like I've done a lot of author conventions lately, and I find that like what people consider a novel is not what I thought. It's just thinking like that old like Stephen King, Richard Matheson, like
Yeah,
300 pages, 400 pages. That's a novel.
they can
But
get pretty small. Yeah.
yeah, but they're like, oh wow, that's a lot. So like to them, 190 pages is a
Yeah.
novel.
Oh yeah, page wise, this is 457 pages. 454 pages.
Right.
454 pages. So yeah, it's and I made it like big on purpose to like get the page count down. So like it's like for example, the size of the prologue, you can see the difference in the size of the novel itself. All this extra space it was all in an effort to keep the page count down, but it's still a big boy, man. It's
Did you do single line, double line, like 1.5 line space?
So I went through it's like 1.5, I think.
Okay, yeah.
Um
Pretty, I found that's pretty much standard. It used to be like one, but I think it's 1.5.
yeah, I didn't want it to be too scrunched, but I also didn't want too much space in between because again, I'm trying to keep the page count down. I know it's a big book and it can be a little intimidating to first time readers to like, pick up a huge novel like that. They know it's an investment in time and it's going to take a while to read. I've gotten some pretty good reviews off of it, man. I'm pretty excited about it. The what's it called? Like the tagline is the help of a witch and a bounty hunter enough to catch a prolific serial killer, or will Detective Vandersee's career end before she can close her first case? That's what's at stake in this novel, and it's a fun ride, man. It's a
Does
fun
it
ride.
take place in Earth? Does it take place like in the outer
It,
colony?
it is far in our future. It takes place on a man-made moon, like a giant space station
Okay.
that orbits a ringed planet. And this big giant space station, it's called the Spark, and it's a place that they created after traveling the galaxies looking for a new home in a bunch of different starships. They combined their starships together, created this place, and settled down as like, this is our home from now on. We're not going anywhere. So they've been there for a good 300 years now, and there was peace for a long time, but stuff's starting to get dark, man.
Have you seen the series The Expanse?
I have not watched it. I know
Oh,
that
you are
it's on.
missing out.
I
You would
know I
love
am.
that series.
It
Yeah.
is on my list. I have it on my Amazon Prime playlist. I haven't started it yet. I'm watching Good Omens with my wife right now, and when we finish that, I think we're gonna go into The Expanse. It my book has been compared to the first season of that show, Altered Carbon. I don't know if you ever saw it
Oh,
on
of course.
Netflix.
Yeah.
So it's like Altered
I'm
Carbon,
kind of a
but
sci-fi geek. I've seen a lot of
oh
shows.
yeah. So it's like Altered Carbon, but with magic also. So it's very sci-fi, but it's got magic in it. And that can be a little different for a lot of sci-fi fans. So
Kind of like
just go in
have
knowing.
you read Metropolitan or like City on Fire?
I've read no, I have not read either one of those, but I was thinking of Saga, the comic book Saga. I don't know if you're familiar.
No, I'm not familiar with it.
So I have one right here. Let me get it. So Saga is a big like sci-fi fantasy epic comic book where like
That looks fairly modern in illustration. What
oh it's
year did that
pretty
come out?
it's within the last like 10-15 years, like it's fairly new.
Okay, yeah.
And it follows there's these two warring civilizations out in space, these two different like races that are always at war with each other, and one soldier from one and one soldier from the other have fallen in love with each other and have had a baby, and
Okay.
so they're on the run from both sides, and so that's the plot of Saga.
That's
But
probably a story that's happened so many fucking times
it's
over history.
right. And so it's funny because it's told from the point of view of the baby. The baby is narrating the
Okay.
story. So it's funny, and the art is kind of like cartoony and looks kind of innocent, but the story is incredibly intense. And then you
Okay.
have like, aliens, but you also have, like a giant magic cat that can tell when you're lying, or a prince whose head is a television set, and it's
Oh, that's
madness
cool.
and
Yeah.
ridiculous. And it's such a unapologetic mix of sci-fi and fantasy together, where it's like it's both things. Like you can't say it's one or the other, it's both. And that's kind of what I'm going for, is this idea of like it's sci-fi and fantasy at the same time.
Yeah, I notice people like to draw lines in the sand. Like all of my stuff is kind of cosmic horror. Like my editor calls it speculative fiction. I'm like, what the fuck is that? He says,
Oh
oh well, it's
no.
like a little bit of this, a little bit of that. So, but like I'll be at horror convention selling it, and they're like, well, it's a sci-fi. I'm like, well, it's got a lot of horror elements. It's like, to me, things like Event Horizon or Alien are more like horror than they are sci-fi.
Alien is a straight up horror film. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But like apparently if there's even a little bit of sci-fi, they'll be
Yeah.
like, oh, it's a sci-fi, film or novel or whatever.
That's so
And
weird, man.
it seems like people aren't drawing that distinction as much anymore, which is
In
good.
my experience, the sci-fi and the fantasy genres are so broad and so open to so much that, in my opinion, that they are the setting. You can say my book is set in a sci-fi world, or my book is set in a fantasy world, but regardless of which one, there's a completely different plot going on. Game of Thrones is a fantasy world, but the first book is a murder mystery. Who killed
Right.
John Aaron? That's the plot of Game of Thrones. Who murdered this man? It's a murder mystery, and yet everybody thinks of it as a fantasy epic because, of course, it's
Well,
set.
I did it first. Like I didn't check it out till the whole first season was out. And I was like, wow, this is really good.
Oh, it's crazy good. Those first four seasons are masterpieces.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But once they ran out of the source material, they kind of nuke the fridge. They went
Yeah,
down,
yeah,
down. But
yeah. It was a steady decline for a while, and then a mad plunge at the end. But
oh,
man,
that last season was horrible.
it's a
I
whole
think
can
there's
of
a
worms.
petition like 155,000 people are trying to get it rewritten and remade.
No, like I mean, like I get it. I get why they're passionate. They want it to happen. They don't think George Martin is going to finish the books, so they want a new ending. Like I get it, but like chill out, man. It's just a
Mm.
show. Like they're going to remake it in 10 years anyway with a whole new cast. The whole thing. Like, come on,
And
relax.
they'll be all different people. Like the
Yeah,
males are now females, and like
yeah,
yeah,
and they'll
everything.
have a
Yeah.
roadmap of what not to do. So like it can only get better.
Well, hopefully, yeah. Although some of the remakes have been horrible. It's like
Oh,
they
dude.
remade Friday the 13th, And like, part of the whole mist, like I always refer to Jason Voorhees like the best character in the worst movies. Because they're
Mm,
horrible movies, but he's like this undead zombie killing machine, you know.
yeah.
So that was kind of the attraction to those movies. And they remade Friday the 13th things just like a crazy guy who takes tunnels and that's how he gets around. So I was like, you ruined all the mistake, it's not cool anymore. And then I heard they
I
remade like
I hadn't watched it yet. That's so funny. He digs tunnels to get around.
yeah, I didn't watch it. I was like, I'm done. I'm done. Like I even watched like the bad ones, like Jason X, Jason in
Oh
Space.
man.
Like I knew it was gonna be horrible, but it's still Jason. I want to see it.
Yeah.
You know, but
They remade Nightmare on Elm Street a few
that's what I
years
was gonna
back.
mention next. Yeah, they made him like a pedophile. I was like, I don't see a movie about a pedophile. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah. But what's funny is that the actor Jackie Earl Haley's he's amazing. He's an incredible actor. Like I was excited for the movie when I heard it was him doing it, because I
right?
figure, oh, it's just the next one. But no, it was a reboot and they changed things and blah 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 blah. Yeah, it's the whole
It was bad. It went downhill. Yeah,
thing.
I don't know, but I watched like there's some stuff where I can't tolerate the sequels. Like some I'll watch even when they're not that great. Like Hellraiser, I've watched through like Hellraiser in Space.
Mm.
But like I've heard like I really like Pumpkinhead, and I've heard don't watch any of the other Pumpkinheads; they'll ruin it for you. It's
Oh
just like
man,
a guy running around in a rubber suit.
sucks. Yeah, I haven't seen those either.
Oh, you ever
I'm
seen Pumpkinhead? You are missing
no.
out.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm not a huge horror guy. I like it in small doses, and so every now and then I'll take something in, but I'm not a huge horror guy.
Hi, this is Dan Henk. Brief intermission from a scheduled podcast. I just wanted to ask people to help support me. I'm trying to give a light and a voice to indie authors and indie artists and indie musicians that don't really get out there. And I like to keep this as ad-free as humanly possible. But in order to do that, I need your support. So it would really help me out if you could support me. As little as $3 a month is a minimum tier. That would be great. So up above is the link. Click on that and you can support me. Thanks, and back to our original program. Well, I
Um,
like horror when it's like a Henry Portrait of serial killer, just like it's one fucked up guy slashing people. I'm like, there's lots of fucked up guys. I don't really care about that. When they like bring in mythical elements, like Pumpkinhead has like this creature, and this
mm,
witch summons it, and it's like this guy who wants to get revenge, so he gets this creature summoned, then he arrests it, and I think you might like it. It's like
that's
there
cool.
are definitely some fantasy elements. There are definitely some mystical elements. It's not a straight up horror film.
That's cool. I'll check that out. I'll check that out. Pumpkinhead. All right.
All right, so let's go back to what you've got going on. So,
Yeah.
how long have you been working on the series? I'll just this is what I'm talking about is my first book. I worked on from the time I was 15 until I was 30. That's when I finally put it out. And like originally, I wanted to be a comic artist. So originally, I was making a comic, and I was
Yeah.
in Gainesville, Florida. There were a lot of indie comic artists. So I'd stop by the comic shops they worked at and get advice and whatever. So the whole thing evolved over time, and then I finally brought out as a novel.
Right, right. I have a very, very similar story, a very similar experience. Absolutely. Yeah, I had this project that I worked on for years with a group of my friends. I got together with some friends of mine who I just consider to be incredibly talented people, and I respect the hell out of them. And they're the kind of people that like they set their mind to doing something, they get that shit done. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so I was
Which is
really
important because people talk shit about what they'll do forever and it never gets done. But
exactly. And for a very long time that was me talking about something that I wanted to do and I had plans for and all this stuff and it would never get done. And so I got together with them to do this graphic novel series. And we wrote the story together like in a writer's room kind of situation where like we plotted out the series together and got all our ideas together, and then it fell on me to go and actually write the scripts. I was supposedly the writer in the group. I should go write the scripts, and I worked on those scripts for like 5 years and never showed them to anybody and never did anything with them because they were just not what we set out to make. Like I didn't have the chops as a writer yet to do what we wanted to do with that series. And I knew that if I put what I was writing out there, it's not just my name on it, it's their name too. And I didn't want to drag them through the mud with me
Right.
on what was definitely going to be not a great series. So I set it aside finally. I got real with myself. I set it aside and was like, I need to become a better writer on my own first. And I need to put stuff out there that has my name on it and my name only so that the risk is mine and mine alone. And I can prove myself to myself and move forward from there. And that's where this series began. I started writing a short story that became where did I put it? That became the prologue. I wrote that short story after a mushroom trip that I
Yeah.
just like I had to get it down, man. Like it was one of those things where I don't like writing about myself, so I assigned it to a character, and I just told the experience as though it was this character's experience, but it's my mushroom trip in the story. And by the time I finished that short story, I realized,
Oh,
oh,
real
this is
quick, let me tell
yeah,
you, like when I was a teenager, I was like super punk rock, like blue mohawk, spiky leather jacket. So I did mushrooms and went to a state fair. And at the time, I lived in Fairfax, Virginia, which is like a very conservative area.
yeah,
But my dad was stationed there, so I lived there. So I went to the fair, and when you're on mushrooms, you think everybody knows that you're fucked up. So like
yeah, and
cops are looking at you. They probably looked at me because I have like spiky blue hair, but I'm
yeah.
like, he fucking knows. He fucking knows.
They all know.
It was the worst thing. And then I'd be like on rides, and the rides are like, moving. I'm like, oh, I feel nauseous.
Yeah, yeah. I don't take mushrooms and go do stuff.
Yeah,
That's
don't. That
that
was a bad idea. That
I
was a
don't
bad
do
idea.
that. I always make sure that I'm in a good environment, that I'm with cool people who
Right.
also know what they're doing, and we can just be there for each other. And or it's like I've taken mushrooms and I went to sleep and I, had a crazy dreams. Like I'm not going out on mushrooms.
Oh, I never did that. It kept me awake. But yeah,
Yeah, no, I
I
once
guess it
like
depends on what strain you do and all that
oh
sort of
sure,
stuff.
yeah, and the dosage and everything. Well, the one for this story was a particular mushroom trip where I took more than I normally do, and when I used to have was very chill, relaxed, experiences, and this one I was tripping balls. I was gone, and I was in a point in my life where I had things wrong with who I was and how I lived my life, and I had to confront those things, man, like full ego death stuff. And so it was this intense bad trip while I was going through it, but the second it was over, I knew that was a transformative moment that changed me. And to this day, my wife tells me that I came home a different person that day and that I'm a much better husband now and I'm a better father. And she tells me all the time, she's like, thank God that dude before that mushroom trip never came back home. You came back home and I like. I'm like, awesome. So
Well,
anyway,
there's like a long history of like famous comedians like
oh
Roseanne
yeah.
Barr and stuff. They'll get hit by a car and
Mm.
then they're unconscious and I guess it rearranges their brain a little bit. And
Yeah,
when
it
they
changes
become
them. Yeah.
conscious again, they're a totally different person. Like Sam
Unfortunately for
Kinison
them,
was like that. Yeah.
it tends to be a much more negative result that comes out of that. You know what I mean? Like some of their worst qualities start to come out, and like yeah, that's
Well,
definitely a
it's
thing.
kind of like a mixed bag. It's like
Sure. Yeah.
if they didn't become that totally different person, you wouldn't get the same kind of sin of the Roseanne Barr that are
Yeah.
famous. But then again, they probably wouldn't have gone to the extreme of like doing drugs like Sam Kinison did, and he killed himself.
Exactly. The people talk about Kennison before that accident. He was a docile, chill,
Yeah, yeah,
relaxed dude, and that's not the Kennison I know from his stand
right,
up, man. Like that dude's different.
yeah.
Yeah, so I knew that was a very transformative thing and I needed to like talk about it, and so that's where I focused my writing for a while, was that short story. By the time I finished that short story, I realized, oh, this is the beginning of a novel. And so I just started writing the novel. And about like a third of the way through the novel, I'm like, oh, this is a series. So like it just kept growing on me. I've settled on it being a trilogy, but I am putting out like short stories in between, like short story collections. So now that the first novel is out, I'm working on a short story collection for next year
What is
into the next novel.
what is necessary to get like the core of the story down? Like most people when they do like little shorts and stuff, it's like a little bit more backstory, a little bit of a
Mm,
side adventure, but it's
mm.
not like part of like it's not part of like the essential stuff that you need to continue the story.
Mm. I mean, so you're asking like what is necessary to continue the story?
Exactly. Yeah.
So
Like if somebody was like they don't have all if somebody's contemplating exploring the series, would it be like, oh, you got to read all the like little short stories and all the side projects and everything else, or is there like you know like maybe two or three core books that really explain, and the rest just give you more?
well, I mean, so far it's just the two that I have out, the novel and the short story. The short story collection that I'm putting out next year is separate. The way that I'm looking at it is the novels are the big show. It's the movie that the Chris Nolan movie that comes out once every 3 or 4 years. That's what the novel is, right? That's the big show that I want you to go to. The short stories that I'm putting out in between are side stories, side characters, history, lore, things that will enrich in your appreciation of the
Okay,
world that you're
yeah,
reading in the
that's what
novel,
I'm
but they're not,
asking.
yeah, but they're not required. This I'm going to put back into the novel for the next edition that I publish. I'm going to, touch up some typos and stuff that are in it. I'm going to put out a hardcover and I'm going to put this back in because I always intended it to be part of the novel. I took it out because it was honestly, it's such a big it's 10,000 words. That's a big prologue. You want prologues to be short and get into
Right.
the novel, but it really does like need to be in there. So I'm going to put it back in there. But that's why it's available for free through my newsletter. So that way anybody who reads that novel can get to it. Like there's
You
a
said
QR
your
code, go
newsletter.
right to it.
How do they access that?
So it's booksbyadrian.com. And as soon as you get there, there's going to be like a little pop-up thingy. If you want to sign up to the newsletter, that's all you got to do. You can exit out of that if you don't want to sign up and explore the website for a while. And eventually it's going to be like, hey, remember the newsletter? So that's the easiest way is to just go to
So
that
the
website.
website is Books by Adrian.
Booksbyadrian.com. Yes, sir.
Okay. And do you have Amazon authors page
Oh, yep. I got an author's page on
or like
Amazon.
Facebook or
It's
Goodreads or Instagram? Like, how
I
can
am
people,
everywhere. Yeah, all of the above. Yeah. So by going to booksbyadrian.com, you'll find all that other stuff. You'll be able to
links to
find
all your other social
it
media?
links everything is linked on there. So all my, my Instagram, TikTok, and Facebooks are all on there. My Goodreads is on there. Amazon page is on there, and all the places that you can buy the book are on there. The first thing you're going to run into on the website is going to be the trailer for the novel to just like get you into it. And the next thing you're going to see is options on how to buy it. You can buy an ebook, you can buy paperback, you can buy signed copies from me. Uh, Whatever, however you like it's on there, man.
Okay, awesome. And you said you plan to hardcover. Are you gonna
Yeah.
make it like I did a hardcover of my debut novel when I re-edited all of it. But I was like, with a hardcover, I'm gonna add stuff to it to say,
Mm,
hey, if you buy the paperback, it's one thing,
some
but if you
extra
buy the
material.
hardcover, you get like additional, whatever. Were you
Yeah.
thinking of like adding stuff to it, like maybe some backstory, some like storyline or whatever?
So I'm definitely gonna put the prologue back in, and then I want to commission some artwork to put
Okay.
in between certain chapters. There's just like certain areas where I want to put like a visual image in your head, and so I'm going to use that as a good opportunity. Like maybe get some new portraits of the characters done because
Yeah, I really miss that. Like if you look at like old stuff, like I'm a big fan of. Yeah.
I got some character portraits
Oh, you can do
commissioned.
some great stuff off that. Yeah.
Oh yeah. So
Yeah, but
I want to.
like old like pulp magazines like The Shadow or Doc Savage, and they'd always have like little like corner illustrations with
Yeah,
text. I loved that. And
there's
like
Neil Gaiman wrote the Graveyard Book, and I don't
Oh, that's
know.
a great book. I love that book.
I love it too, and it comes with illustrations. It comes with interesting little
Yeah.
that lead into the chapters, and it really like sets the tone for the chapter, and then they like bleed into the story. You know what I mean? Like it's not quite a graphic novel. It's all like in the background, but it bleeds into the story, and I really like that. It's like ambiance. You know what I
Well,
mean? So I might do
I
something like
found
that.
out like originally I would be a comic artist and I interviewed with like DC Comics and Marvel Comics. They don't really they want you to do their characters. And like maybe
Yeah.
part of it was when I interviewed with them, they're like doing very bad financially. Like the movie saved them. You
Oh
know,
yeah, yeah. The MCU saved Marvel for sure.
yeah. But they were like, I wanted to do my own stuff, and they're like, they literally asked me if I wanted to draw Superman, and I said no, and they said we don't have a job for you.
Wow.
So I was like, but I'm glad with what I did. So now I do novels with illustrations in them, and
Nice.
that I kind of get everything out that way. And I feel like with with that much text, you get to tell more of the story. You get to delve more into what's going on.
You did your
And
own covers too, right? I saw on your website
oh
the
yeah, yeah, I
artwork, and
do
then I
my
saw the
cover.
artwork
I
and the
do a lot of
covers.
covers for people. I do
Those
covers, I do
covers are great, man.
illustrations. Oh, thank you. But yeah, I just got her to do like illustrations for some like horror video game that's coming out. But yeah, I try and keep myself busy. But I think illustrations, like if it's a good illustration, it tells a good story.
Yeah, for sure.
So you said you worked on this for like 5 years, but kind of like
That
didn't
was
publish
the
it.
other one. I'm sorry, that was the other one. This one I worked on for 3 years.
Okay,
Yeah, this
and
this novel I worked on for 3 years.
this is the first novel that you have out.
Yeah, this is my debut. It came out April of this year.
Okay, did you have people that inspired you? Like you're like, I like that the style of that author, or that
Oh,
this
sure.
is kind of like the schematic I was going with.
Yeah, for sure. I've found so many of the big name authors give the same advice, and that is steal from everybody. Everybody that you love, their work, steal their stuff, because that's how you learn what your stuff is, what your style
Right.
is. And so I can definitely point to my influences. As far as like the chapter layouts of this book, that's straight out of Game of Thrones and George R. R. Martin. A different point of view character for each chapter, and each chapter is a whole little like adventure, and then you go off to another character, and they all tie in. And that's, if you like reading the Game of Thrones books, you will like the way that these books are designed, because it's the same way. And then I'm a big Neil Gaiman fan. I don't know if you can see American Gods right there. uh
But yeah, he just gets better and better as
Oh,
time goes
dude,
by.
he's outstanding. And one of the things that I love about his writing is almost all of his stories have some fantastical element, are fantasies outright, but they're so subtle. Like, he treats it like the real world. Whether you're reading Neverwhere or American Gods, you would swear that you're watching an episode of a normal TV show like a Breaking Bad or a Sopranos or something that takes place in the real world. And then somebody does something magical and nobody reacts because it's totally normal and it's part of the world and it's like lived in. And he does that so beautifully that I kind of like wanted to emulate that a little bit too. So
Well,
that's
that
what,
is kind of realistic too. Like a lot of
yeah.
people, like dramatic stuff happens around them. They don't really realize the impact. Just like, whatever. They just write it off, and they're like, 10 years later, they're like, that was actually a big point.
Yeah, yeah. You realize it like one night you're in bed and you're like, oh,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. So I wanted to bring that a little bit to my book. So while the setting is a sci-fi setting, there's fantasy elements, like I said, and there's magic in the world, and it's all kind of part of it. And I'm trying to build like a real solid like sci-fi fantasy foundation there. And then the whole like detective drama thing about it, that really came from like the Altered Carbon and Blade Runner and things like that, where it's like it's sci-fi,
That's
but
another
there's
great
this
movie.
like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, but there's like a noir detective gritty kind of thing going on, and that's where that sort of comes from. So it's a big genre bender. There's a lot of stuff going on in there. But if you like any of the things that I just mentioned, you should probably check it out. I think you would like it.
was sci-fi or fantasy kind of your focus? Like, have you altered from one to another?
I read way more fantasy than sci-fi. I really haven't read a lot of sci-fi, but I watch a lot of sci-fi. So like I love watching sci-fi movies and sci-fi shows, and they're a big, deal for me. And so that's where that influence comes from. But book wise, I mean, Priory of the Orange Tree, I got The Name of the Wind up here, I got American Gods, Dryad's Crown, like it's all fantasy. It's Game of Thrones, everything up here pretty much is fantasy. So I'm just a big fantasy guy. Like I really like, whole worlds created out of idea. you know.
Well, it's stuff like the stuff that I like and stuff I focus on is just dark thematics. Like it doesn't matter if it's fantasy or if it's sci-fi. If it's mystical, whatever. As long as it like has kind of a dark scheme to it. I mean, it sounds like I mean, Game of Thrones obviously has a dark scheme to
Oh
it.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um,
I lean towards that as well myself. Yeah, absolutely. Gritty, dark. True detective, like just like intense.
that was another great series. Yeah, true. Like that first season, True Detective was
Oh my god, the
awesome.
first season is a straight up masterpiece.
Yeah.
Season three ain't bad either though. Season three is really good. People didn't watch it because season two sucked, but season three is really good.
Yeah, I just gave up. I was like, well, the
Skip
first
season
one's
two.
like,
Go,
how
yeah,
do you
go.
match Matthew McConaughey and Woody Harrelson and
Yeah, yeah. Like you're not gonna catch that lightning in a bottle again. But
yeah, exactly,
yeah,
lightning
but
in a
season
bottle.
three
Yeah,
solid. Season three solid.
I don't know. I feel like there's some stuff like Stranger Things, like that first season of Stranger Things was awesome. The rest were
Agreed.
good, but it's like that first one was amazing. It broke all the ground and everything. It's like
Yeah.
you don't really need to continue. I'm sure the studios do because they're
Well,
like there's money, but
what's really interesting is I think what happened to it was the same thing that happened to Heroes way back in the day, because Heroes and Stranger Things both, if I remember correctly, were intended to be anthology series. Every season would be a different story with a different cast in a different place in a different time, and
that's the way with Halloween. Like,
that would have
yeah,
been really cool to see on Stranger Things. That first season being what it is, it's like boom, perfect, done. And now let's a whole new world with a whole new monster and a whole
right,
new thing,
right.
like do something different. But instead, everybody fell in love with that cast in season one. And I'm assuming that the creators were then like forced to continue that thread, because
Right.
that's what happened to Heroes. Heroes was meant to be an anthology, and everybody fell in love with Peter Petrelli and all these people, and like, oh, we have to continue these characters, and it's just not the same, man. That first season, same as Stranger Things, that first season is just lightning in a bottle.
Well, that's what I was saying with the movie Halloween. Like,
Mm,
John Carpenter initially wanted it to be like that, a series. So,
yeah.
like, he did the first one with Michael Myers, and he's like, all right, Michael Myers is done.
Next
Then
time will be
the
a different,
studio was
yeah.
like, oh, that sold said, well, you have to do a sequel and you have to put Michael Myers in it. So he did. I don't even think the sequel's that good. I feel like it was just very rushed. But then the third one is what he was trying to do. Like, if you notice, there's new Michael Myers, and then they're like, no, no, you got to go back to Michael Myers. And they've been repeating it ever since.
Studios don't know what they're doing.
No, well, they never do, and then they criticize you until you do the next big thing, and then all of a sudden, you're the best thing on this planet, as long as they can make money off you.
It's funny because it happens all the time. It happened to Sam Raimi on Spider-Man 3. He wanted to do a particular thing. The studio was like, no, you got to do Venom. And he's like, I don't like Venom. I don't want
Well,
to do
it's
Venom.
because they want to sell. They're like,
Yeah,
you have to
exactly. Of
include
course.
more because
Venom is
we
a
want to
very
sell
popular
more.
character. Of course, absolutely.
Yeah.
So the studio's like, it'll sell more. You have to do Venom. Everybody wants you to do Venom, just do it. And so he shoehorned Venom into that movie. The movie flops because it just doesn't work. And so
Well, I
everybody's
think I heard at one point they were like pushing him so hard to include something they didn't want to include. He was just like, all right, you want this? All right, I'll give you a crappy movie.
basically like he like shoehorned it in there and just created what it was. And it's interesting because then the movie fails. Actually, like in the box office it did fine, but critically it fails. And so the studio goes, hey man, like you fumbled the ball. He's like, no, I told you this was gonna suck. I told you that we shouldn't do it this way. You made me do it this way, and now it sucks. And they're like, well, you can't do the next one anymore because you
Well, of
messed this
course,
one up.
Hollywood never accepts blame. It's always someone else's fault.
Of
Yeah.
course, yeah, yeah, suits.
All right, man. So let's thank you for being on this. Let's wrap this up a little bit. Do you have
Yeah.
something else, like another project that you want to talk about?
So,
Do you have movie plans with this? Are you like trying
oh
to
man.
pitch it to people?
I wrote it intentionally as cinematically as I could. I even took the structure of movie scripts, like the beats that a perfect movie has to hit, and put them into each chapter of this book with the intention of like you can turn this into a movie or you can turn it into a TV show.
That might
Like,
be part of why you like the Expanse, because that was originally a book series, and then they
yes,
sold that and it became the series. And first Sci-Fi put it out, and then they're like, "Hey, this is more than we're going to spend." And so but by then it had such a diehard fan base that Jeff Bezos picked it up, and now they finished it on
now
Amazon
it's on
Prime.
Amazon. Okay, cool. Yeah, it's on my list, man. I'm definitely gonna watch it. I'm watching it next after Good Omens. Um, but yeah, so I made it as cinematically as possible. I want to someday turn it into something like that. I want Hollywood to back a truck full of money onto my lawn and go and make
Right,
whatever
right.
crap movie they want to make. It's fine.
That happened
But
to Mike Mignola. He was like toiling away at the comic book industry, and then Hollywood came calling for Hellboy, and then
boom.
he's been sitting pretty and just doing a couple of illustrations ever
Yeah.
since.
Yeah. And movies and television, that's where the real money is. Like, novels. There are superstars in the author world, but they're very rare. For the most part, we struggle. That's
Yeah,
what
you
we
don't
do
make
as
the money
authors.
you
We
used to.
struggle.
Like I
Nah.
remember I did a writing seminar for Stephen King, and I think his first novel he sold for it was Carrie, I think, and he sold it for $250,000 in the 70s.
Oh my God. He was a millionaire back then. That's the
Yeah,
equivalent of a millionaire now.
yeah,
That's crazy.
he even said like he like asked the guy to repeat it on the phone. He's like, "Wait, how much?" You
Wow, that's nuts. I
don't get
didn't
that
know that.
anymore.
That's
Yeah,
no, of course not. No. So yes, I hope that happens someday. I don't have plans for it yet, but someday, man. Fingers
fingers
crossed.
crossed.
In the meantime, I am working on the short story collection that I'm putting out next year. I'm actually writing most of it during NaNoWriMo next month. Starting tomorrow. And so I hope to get that done within the month and then go through the editing process and everything and have it out around April of next year.
Okay, awesome, awesome. All right, so the best way to see you and get signed books and all that is to go to your website.
Yeah, booksbyadrian.com is your best bet. You can find my YouTube channel from there. You can find my stores. You can find everything you need to find from that website.
You have like a contact email on the website, and they can just like or a contact page.
Absolutely. Yeah, you can send me an email directly from the website if you like. You can contact me on any of the social medias that I have connected on there. However you want to reach me, I'm very reachable.
Okay, awesome. All right, well, thank you very much for doing this. Thanks for talking about your stuff. And do you have anything else you want to add?
I just thank you very much for having me, man. I appreciate this very much, and it was a great time.
Okay, awesome. All right.